Welcome to hole 12 of the Adventure Golf Unit. During hole 12 we will be looking at the area of trapezoids. Before we do that, we're going to quickly look back at what we've learned through the first 11 holes. The area of a square, let me remind you, is a parallelogram that is a rectangle and a rhombus, 4 right angles, which makes it a rectangle, 4 congruent sides, which makes it a rhombus. To find the area, for example, if this is 3 inches, if this is 3 inches, this would be 3 inches because my sides are congruent, and my base and height of a parallelogram form a right angle. 3 times 3, the area here would be 9 square inches. The area of a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 90-degree angles, and in this case this side is congruent to this side is congruent to its opposite side. If this is 6 and this is 2, my base times height would be 6 times 2, we'll say inches, which would be 12 square inches. The area of all parallelograms in general would be base times height, and it's important to remember that base and height must be perpendicular. Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, because a triangle is half of a parallelogram, or I could do base divided by 2 times height. Either way. Looking at a trapezoid, a couple things to remember with a trapezoid, and you can copy the definition if you need to, pause it as long as you need. A quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. So when we were talking about parallelograms, we were talking about 2 pairs of parallel sides, whereas now we're just talking about 1. The parallel sides are going to be your 2 bases. So when you're looking at a trapezoid and you have to determine your bases, your 2 bases are always the pair of parallel sides. So in this case, base 1 would be 14, base 2 would be 4. The height of your trapezoid is always perpendicular to your 2 bases. So if this were given as a length of 8, that would have no meaning in finding the area, because I want the height that is actually perpendicular to my bases. To find the area of a trapezoid, you just simply take the average of your bases, which means I must add them together and divide by 2. So take the average of your bases, and I put them in parentheses so my order of operations does not just divide base 2 by 2 and then add base 1. I need to do the addition first. So in parentheses, base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. That will give me the average of my bases, and then I must multiply it by the height of my trapezoid. So in this case, I'm going to do 4 plus 14, which is 18, divided by 2, which is 9, times my height. 9 times 6 is 54 square inches. So all written out, I would have base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2, which gives me the average, and then I'm going to multiply it by the height. And I personally like to work through these kind of step by step and do them mentally. So again, as I said, I would do 18 divided by 2 is 9, 9 times 6 is 54. If I look at this trapezoid, this is somewhat unusual, just because textbook makers and you're probably more familiar with your trapezoid having their bases being horizontal. In this case, my bases are vertical, and I can tell they're my bases because they're my parallel sides. So I look at this 8.5 plus 13.5, quantity divided by 2, and then I need to multiply by my height, which is perpendicular, which in this case would be 15. I'm going to look at this and say 8.5 and 13.5 would be 22, divided by 2 would be 11. 11 times 15 is 165 centimeters squared. So 8.5 plus 13.5 is 22, divided by 2 is 11, times 15 equals 165. I skipped a couple slides here. If I look at the area of these 4 trapezoids that I have examples of, here you see a square, and I can tell it's a square because of the tick marks, with a triangle here and a triangle here. If this is 5, the height of each of these triangles would be 5. And I know that this is the height of my triangle because it's perpendicular, and this would be a right triangle. Or I can attack this as one large trapezoid. I've got a base of 5. This base down here would be 3 plus 5 plus 4. So I've got one base of 5 and a base of 12. Divide by 2 times my height. My height is 5. 5 plus 12 is 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. 8.5 times 5. 8 times 5 is 40. 0.5 times 5 is 2.5. My area here would be 42.5 centimeters squared. So again, base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times the height. And you can actually just run that through a calculator with the parentheses. This trapezoid, I actually have an altitude because my height falls outside of the shape, but you can see the side length, or the side with length 8 and the side with length 14 are parallel to each other. So 8 plus 14 is 22. Divided by 2 would be 11. And then I multiply it by the height or altitude. 11 times 11 is 121 units squared. Down here my base and height are 3 and 6. 3 plus 6 divided by 2 is averaging them. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5 times 4 will give me an area of 18 meters squared. So I'm averaging the two bases, multiplying by the height. In this case, my bases would be 6 and 16. 6 plus 16 is 22. 22 divided by 2 would be 11, times my height of 14 would be 154. And you can see these two measurements were not used. My heights, or my bases, are parallel to each other, and my height is perpendicular, and these two do not fall in either of those categories. In summary, you're looking at base 1 plus base 2 in parentheses divided by 2 gives me the average of my bases, multiply it by the height, and that equals my area.